Welcome to the Creative Right Now podcast, an experience for writers of all levels to help you elevate your craft and learn key insights and details from industry experts, published authors, and working writers. So that way you can really take that writing to the next level. I'm going to be interviewing today two really exciting writers who are responsible for setting up and starting KaleidoScript Magazine, a very, very cool online experience. Ian Craven and Melissa are the co-founders of KaleidoScript, a global online magazine with a mission to provide a platform where writers and readers can share their authentic, captivating stories that blend fiction with reality. Melissa Desveaux is an international best-selling author whose writing journey only began after not one, not two, but multiple pregnancy losses. Let's welcome Melissa to the stream. Welcome, Melissa. Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
Jared. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for bringing me on today.
Of course. Thank you for sitting down with an interview with me. I've been so excited to actually be able to talk with you guys and learn more about your experience and really what it took you to get to the magazine. It looks like I have Ian in the stream as well. So Ian Craven is a writer who's learned how to control his superpower through his battles with dyslexia and misunderstanding. I'm going to proudly introduce and bring Ian into the stream. Welcome, Ian.
Hey, sorry.
And you are live.
Yeah.
Welcome, my friends. Thank you. I'm so happy to have you guys on. So I was, as y'all know, I've been working on improving this podcast experience, and I really wanted to bring on other writers and other industry professionals who've gone through different levels of experience and how they use their experience to really tell compelling stories. Now, before we hop into talking about the magazine itself, I want to hear a little bit more about you. Now, for our audience that doesn't know too much about either of you, would you guys be able to introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about your writing journey? And Melissa, feel free to start first.
All right.
Who do I begin with?
My name's Melissa Desveaux. I am a published author of, 5 books now. Most of them are collaborative books. They are, I started writing after I had pregnancy losses. So I've had 3 miscarriages and a stillborn baby. And the only way basically I could get away from, help me to overcome the grief that I had and the trauma that I was feeling was to write. So I started journaling. And then after I had my 2 sons, I decided that I would write a book with the encouragement of my husband. So he actually said to me, why don't you write a book about it? And so I did. I wrote, I took all the information that I had from journaling and I put it all into the book that's called My Life of Loss. And about a year later, I thought of creating a online auction, which basically led to me donating about $1,000 to a charity that help premature babies. And then it just sort of
Melissa, I couldn't even imagine what that experience must have been like for you. But that's incredible that you were able to support a group that's clearly near and dear to you.
Yeah. So and then basically I just started putting together collaborative books about pregnancy and pregnancy losses. And then just only a couple of years ago, I put together a collaboration called Letters of Love, and they're basically books written by all, like, different writers, or people in general, but they've written their, like, letters in the Letters of Love books, and we had 3 of those books, and the last one was basically pregnancy and infant loss. So, but that's basically my writing journey, and publishing my. I've published a lot of books for clients as well, so I kind of know, the ins and outs of publishing, and that's how I actually help people now publish. So it was from, like, just writing this little book to actually helping now people publish their own stories, and which is really cool. So
Oh, that's really sweet. Thank you so much for sharing. And, like, I definitely want to learn a little bit more about your journey, but and I want to hear, like, what's your story? How did you get into writing?
Oh yeah, for me, I really got started. Well, my 7th grade English teacher, she had us kept a journal, and I just kept journaling afterwards. Like I journaled, I think, until I was maybe at least a senior. I kept journaling over the summers, and I'd hand it to her. But she was a great inspiration, and I guess just an English teacher who embodied them and understood what English was meant to be. And
Mhm.
I think I latched hold of that. And at that time, I was just journaling, right? I wasn't even writing stories, except about myself, or my sister or whatever. This happened over the weekend, and a
Aw.
lot of another part of that, of my journaling, though, was my ideas or my thoughts, because people, they don't understand me. So I could journal, my life, but then I also journal my thoughts, and I consider, the paper is like, this is my best friend, the friend that doesn't talk back,
Aw.
and you can write on it, and it listens to you. So that's kind of that perspective. And just through growing up. And then I believe my English teacher, she wrote, because she would still write back to me in my journal, and she told me to write for myself. And so I took that to heart. And now I kind of got away from journaling when uh, I went to college. Of course, I had to, continue to write, as a freshman. And that college experience really pushed me to develop my writing, even if I didn't know it was leading me down a creative path of storytelling. I knew I had a really vivid mind. This is about about 2011 or so. Uh, I had this vivid mind, so I tried to write a story, and it just became an image, just, well, more of a scene, and it wasn't really a story. And I was kind of, it's like I tried, but that wasn't it didn't come of anything. And I realize now, if I would just kept going with the story, it would have become something. But um now, one of my main struggles, I'll mention, between high school, well, actually all through my life, even in college, was the sequencing of my writing. So if you're my English teacher and you get my paper, oh, it's a mess, and I'd be like, first paragraph, and then
You're like,
5
good
paragraphs, and the fifth
luck.
paragraph
Have
is
fun. This is the rough draft.
yeah, yeah. So I was always getting criticized, and my paper would be marked up in red. So now I'll mention in my high school, and then this followed me into college, where I had instances where people were like, "Oh, this is really good. This is good writing," and I was like, "Oh no, not me!" Like, my English teachers, they mark that stuff up in red, and so it took me some convincing, but I had this moment finally in college where I wrote something, and one of my friends, her name's Karen, she's like, "Oh, this is really good," and she even showed it to, like, wasn't my advisor, I guess, at the time. And
Mhm.
or you have a college advisor, for your courses. Um, and she's like, "This is not Ian Craven. Like, this is, because you're kind of stingy on actually writing your papers, right? You got to write a certain way, but when you have that ability to just write." And so that caught something, in me to like made me realize, okay, that enough's enough, right? I actually started. Well, I met someone online, and we did a roll call kind of thing, a role
Mhm.
playing game, not a game, but a story. She was one character and I was one, and so that
Online
kind of
role-playing
helped me
forums,
embody that.
great. They are a
Yeah,
great way for newer writers and younger writers to practice storytelling.
yeah.
Absolutely
So
recommend if you're still getting used to writing.
yeah, so that hooked me, and as the story developed, recognizing her as one character in myself, and then she would give me images or give me pictures. Like Google became my best friend. I was looking up all these fantasy pictures, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So that really sparked me. It ignited me, and then my friend Will, he's a best friend. He's an English major. He really helped me with sequencing uh, um, in my writing journey
Mhm.
in 2010. But when I got to writing, like I started bursting out writing this novel, right? Um, and I shared it with him, and he saw my potential, and he's become such a big influence and impact on my life and my writing journey. And now my degree isn't is biblical studies, but it was never focused on to be literature, And so
Mhm.
he's an English major, so he's a great influence. But I kind of felt beside myself, like I'm not a professional,
Aw.
and that's where I got into my networking with my Facebook group. I created a Facebook group for
Mhm.
writers, right? And so and that led me down this path of connecting with so many like I was getting on other platforms like I write poetry too, so I get on a
Aw.
couple of different social networks where I was sharing my poetry, and I was connecting with people. They were commenting or whatever, and I connect with them, and that really showed me uh, a way of communicating and connecting with people in a way I hadn't before. So empowering, because I talk with people, and the way my mind goes off, and talking in the way I do and stuff, you know, I, I'm not understood it like as easily. So, um, from there, it's just been, I think, one step after another, like different phases of life that's really confirmed, like I must write or I'm
Mhm.
gonna die. Like I have to do
It kind of
this.
becomes that point, doesn't it? As I
Yeah.
kind of listen to both of your stories, Ian and Melissa, there's definitely a number of things that really like resonate with me, right? Finding writing as a means of expressing yourself, overcoming like difficult life experiences, and trying to figure out like how do I really like translate that for the world, learning the writing process, one person, one step, one word at a time, learning enough about writing so then we can help others. I definitely really resonate with both of your stories. And I
Yeah.
know
If
that I
I
made a right choice in bringing both of you on.
Yeah, if I could comment, people want to write, and they need that motivation of like how to write, and besides the craft itself, because creative writing, it's not exactly something that you learn, even though there's some methodology behind, knowing whether you're a plotter or a pantser or whatever, those different kinds of things. But um it's really finding the reason, why do I write? Like, well, what is the purpose? What is the drive behind it? And I think for me, it's that mode of communicating beyond myself, beyond like just being able to have a conversation. It's like, this is what I can leave behind. And I think like for Melissa, she has her story where it's
Mm.
like, oh, I have something here and people need to hear it. And so for me, I have this creative, vivid mind, and that's where it's like, that's why I went towards fantasy and all
Mhm.
these different rich expressions, and then
You and me
Melissa.
both, Ian. You
Yeah,
and me
yeah.
both.
So,
There's a
so
reason we live in fantasy a little bit more.
yeah, and then Melissa, she's more um on the nonfiction side, right? And that's where
Mhm.
that's part of the meaning of the magazine where we connect, um,
Mm.
because
It
if there's
actually
power
brings
in storytelling in a general sense of what it's meant to be for us as humans.
as you're like talking about like storytelling and writing, I have to ask you guys this because I ask everybody this. What does creative writing mean to you? I'm like on a quest to understand creative writing around the world. And Ian, I know you were kind of touching upon it, but like what does it mean when somebody's like, so what creative writing? What comes to mind?
Oh man, well, it's so deep because it really, we've got at most what 70 years, maybe 100, and how many of those years are we able to put ourselves into our work, and we're able to leave something behind and be remembered in a way that's going to impact history. And
That's really sweet.
yeah, so like I'll put it this way: I helped somebody write a story once, or well, not a story, but well they had a paper on literature, and they had a particular topic, and I was like, how about you do it on women, and it was about being a woman, and uh the subject of being married, and so like you can see like, and back in history where women weren't as free, right? And like more like let's say a traditional expectations of of what's expected in marriage and life and so on, right? And now we've kind of progressed to being more independent, or women have, and of course men who have their roles have evolved as well, right? And so anyway, she had to write her paper, and she got done with it and she shared it with me, and I was so amazed because I realized, you can read a story, you can read a nice classical story and see the message of, how was the woman portrayed, how was the man portrayed, and how was society viewed in that time. But when you actually take a look
Yeah, that's very true.
at literature across the span of time, you see a narrative of where we were and where we're at today, and what that means, like what so sometimes in history, right, we hopefully we learn history so we don't repeat it, and sometimes it's that larger
Right, like hopefully
narrative.
we learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah,
Maybe,
so
maybe not.
and sometimes it's that larger narrative of being able to study the literature to be able to see like the different, like the progression of like, here's where we were in the 1700s, the 1800s, 19, and then leading up to like the 21st century, and here's how women are treated today. And it could be any form of topic, right? But we're able to see this progression of different ideas and how they evolve and what they mean to us, and through that we're able to step back and be like, so like if there's certain flaws or whatever, like things that we're dealing with in our own society, those are those things that we can look at literature to help us to see those holes, and then see how, like in our everyday actual life, what do we need to develop, what do we need to implement to make our world stronger and better. Does that make sense? So
It
like
absolutely
the
does. I think
I,
it's learning from your experience, right? And how that's
yeah,
going to kind of evolve with your writing journey.
yeah,
And like
and and
Melissa, what
and
about you? Like how has your writing like evolved for you? And then like what does it mean?
Well, I mean, I was never a writer. So, like,
Mhm.
Ian started when he was younger, but me, like, I failed English. I was like a terrible writer. I only like actually started when, I started the journaling. So for me, I have progressed a lot since then, and really it's only been, I guess, the last 16 years, I suppose.
Mhm.
And I don't write consistently. It's more of when I kind of have to write, or when
Mhm.
I've put these books out. So it's like, I don't consider myself a consistent writer.
Mhm.
But like, in saying that, I think being like, going back to your previous question, is being a creative writer. I think it's just, everybody's got a creative mind, right? So whatever
Mhm.
you're going
Completely
to
agree.
talk about, or whatever
Agreed.
you're going to write about, it's going to be something that's come from your head. You're going to be writing it down, and kind of like a movie, right? So
Mhm.
it's something that you can picture. So like, when you are writing, then you're sort of, I guess, writing what, for me anyway, you're writing about what happened in that moment. So like, in in particular moments that I really recall happening in my life, they are the most, I suppose, transformative, and they're the parts where make a big impact in the writing, and then I can sort of bring that into, to make the impact on that person that's reading the story as well. So, I mean, I guess creative writing is just something that's, it happens, whether it's a non-fiction story or, a fiction story. It's something that's come from your mind. You're creating it in your mind. So creative, right?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think this creative writing is a combination of like the style, like this inner style based off our experience and our perspective, in addition to our learned skill. So like I'm of the belief that creative writing as an art form can be learned, but not everyone's going to be a Stephen King, or not everyone's going to be a George R.R. Martin, so to speak, right? But I think that we can learn how to improve our storytelling step by step, and then that combined with our own unique style, when we really employ like a positive mindset and all the things that hold us back as writers, those combined help us tell the stories that we want to tell. I am of like the crazy belief. I'm like the one, probably the weirdo out there, who I don't think there's any bad stories out there. I know I will get flack from this from people. I don't think there's any bad stories out there. Now somebody might be like, but Kauffman, I've read a lot of garbage before. And I'll be like, the challenge is that it's the way that you frame it, right? Because I think if you say something is a bad story, it minimizes the writer's goal and attempt for what they were trying to accomplish. We don't always take into consideration where a story is at in the development process when we're creating a story, right? And I think every story can be improved. We've seen so many like published stories out there, which are great. A lot of published stories out there, which are not so great. But I think it's, as long as we're aware of like why doesn't it work, and then we're working to improve that, whether it's for that one or whether it's for the other one. So I really try to like, okay, we can all get there. We can all get to a better level. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think just like touching on that is where this magazine that we're going to talk about sort of came in hand, is like with the stories that I've put together in these books. We wanted to give an opportunity to our authors, just to be able to share what they had. We wanted to give them that platform. So, just creating an opportunity for other authors and writers to get their work out there and known, I guess.
And Melissa, I think that's actually a really great segue, because I'm actually eager to hear a little bit about the magazine myself. So KaleidoScript Magazine, what is it? Like, beyond like, we know it's a digital online global magazine. I gave a little bit of a spiel in the beginning, but what is KaleidoScript Magazine to both of you? And like, why should anyone care about it?
Oh,
well, we
Go ahead, Melissa.
No, I was just gonna say that it was actually Ian's idea, so you can talk about it.
Okay. Well, okay. So I have my Facebook group, Writing Tips for Writers, and of course Melissa and we've been partnered together for a while. And last year, she wanted to do an anthology. She has this anthology guide that this was like her comeback, or her takeaway from you're part of this conference, this Zoom conference with other writers. And I was like, oh, you know what? Doing an anthology, it's like so easy, right? Like you could do a short story and it's a compilation of other stories. It's a good place to start. And like in that conference, I even said like doing publishing in an anthology is a great way to introduce yourself as a writer. You're not giving everything you got, but you can see what people think of you. And So and then maybe gain a little bit of audience that way too. But Melissa with her Facebook group and then mine, and I was realizing, I'm trying to get people to write because I want to take them through the process of writing and
Mhm.
to publish your book. And I was like, well, like let's not sweat it, like you gotta get them to write a little bit. So like, what if I create a magazine to give them the opportunity to, because we do host. I mean, a lot of our stories are short stories.
Mhm.
I would say that's like our main focus, but we do also like we have a flash fiction contest that I really
Okay.
encourage because I think it's a great place to start. Up to flash fiction is up to at least 500 words, or you could write less. Right? So
Mhm.
you don't have to sweat it. And because ideally, if you're building up your skill, you're writing 1,000 words a day, right? And so it's a great place, and then you can evaluate yourself or whatever. You can you know, subscribe and submit your story, and then you get feedback from me and be like, yeah, you could improve it this way. And so, I think it's just a great beginner's place to, to enter into writing. So I wanted to give that opportunity because, when you think about even the writing industry, well, the publishing industry, there's
Mhm.
so much criticism and people being rejected. And I'm just like, just the other day I made a comment on a post of an author's post, and I was like, well, it was about, so if I'm a publishing industry and I'm
Mhm.
rejecting your work, now, I mean, now, everything's kind of split up into different roles here, but I would imagine that if I have a publishing industry, 50% is a guarantee that I'm a good marketer, that I can get your book out there, not how good you've written it. It's like I have to convince the audience that, man, this is a good author, and they have a story to share. And it's like if I'm going to sign on it and I'm putting all the weight on you to be a good author,
Mhm.
like, I mean, you probably hopefully are if I sign, like, hey, we want your book.
Kinda like if you're
But
giving your approval, right?
yeah, but then I need to do my part. Like, if I'm a good seller, then if I know how to convince people, then I can sell them. It doesn't matter how good the writing is, or just, well, my in history though, it's like you see all the
Mhm.
people, I've been rejected how many times, 500 times or something, and then
Mhm.
they get that one, and then they sell a billion books. It's like, okay,
Yeah, and
okay,
I
so
think and I think that really goes to show that writing, the process itself, it can be such a process, as I just said.
yeah,
But,
right,
we take our stories through many different levels to get from that rough draft to something that's ready for publication. And it
yeah,
sounds
for
like
sure,
the two things that you guys really care about is helping either newer or intermediate writers really improve their storytelling so that way they can share it in a short form content.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, my one of my passions is giving people opportunity. I feel that we're so kind of like a, sort of a cut down society. Like we're sort of like, oh, you didn't meet the mark, and then we get rejected. Life knocks us down. And it's like, well, what about the
Mhm.
opportunity? Because, well, I guess the lens that I'm speaking from is, like in a school setting, as like dyslexia or whatever, or
Mhm.
not just me, but any kid, or whatever. If they take extra time, take a test or whatever, but or they don't do well in the test. How many times in history
Oh
do we
god.
see people don't do well in the
Yep.
classroom, but then they become this idol, right? They become this someone, oh, there's an Einstein or something, and it's like,
Well, yeah,
well,
and
yeah,
I
maybe
think
you
that's
should have
also
listened.
because the difference between educational, right, smarts, which are rewarded in the education system, which there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. That's its own system, as
yeah,
compared
yeah.
to either
So
creative or street.
right. So it has its own system of recognizing certain smarts, and I want to be able to recognize people for who they are and the opportunity that they're
Mhm.
worth to be given to be a writer. And so you got to start somewhere. It's like, well, are you the fastest runner? Well, no, but do you want to be? So then become faster.
Mhm.
How do you do that? And that's it's the beginning grounds of like, okay, well, let's do it.
Mm.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's
And
so
then,
sweet.
yeah, and then,
I love your guys' mindset. I remember, Ian, when we first connected, we were talking about, like, writing inspiration and motivation and the journey and what it takes. What about you, Melissa? What's that, like, inspirational, like, writing thing that you want readers to get out of the magazine yourself? Oh, oh.
So in relation to getting,
Yeah, and I was like, I
cut
think
off
it
a bit.
lagged for a second. No worries.
So I guess, yeah. So I guess we want, yeah, like what Ian was saying, we want to give the opportunity for authors and writers to share, you know, one of their stories, you know, just to give our audience a taste of, you know, what we can share, whether it's a non-fiction story, like we do have quite a few non-fiction stories in there, and we do have fiction as well. The aim, I think, we'll kind of, bridging reality and fiction basically comes from, I guess, having a kind of a fictional story, but you know, turning it into something that is real, or the other way around. So if it's a real story, kind of making it fictional. Like there is a couple of stories in there that are real life stories, but I actually, you know, turned fictional. You know, like the names and quite, you know, different, and just the way it's written is kind of in a fictional way. But
is it bridging fiction with reality?
That's right. Yeah. So that was our whole
goal. It's that idea, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole idea, and that's why we did some contests around the, you know, the best type of story, or the best, like one of the best stories. But we actually wanted, you know, the contest to be inspirational and actually non-fiction. So it starts with the non-fiction and then goes into the fiction, because, you know, we wanted some inspiration, you know, aspect of it as well. So yeah, so we've got the inspiration in there, and we've got, you know, fictional, and we've got, you know, I think some of the stories, I think some of the stories are really good. So
I would completely agree. I actually think this is a perfect segue to do a little bit of an excerpt reading. So first off, thank you both of you for sharing. I think what would be really good. So what we'll do is we'll do an excerpt reading, because I wanted to show the audience, I want to show each of you out there, just a brief taste of what the magazine looks like, and one of the stories that was selected, which was so exciting. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about kind of like short stories, because I want to hear from you guys, like how do you like write a short story, or how do you like pick the stories that are the right ones for the magazine? And then for you, the audience, if you're here in a live experience, feel free to drop questions for either Melissa, Ian, or myself about the writing process or about the magazine itself. And we're going to be doing a Q&A with some questions after at the end of the segment. So definitely drop some questions and we'll be getting to it. I want to say I love the conversations going on in there. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so let's I'm going to pull this up. Let me I was like, Kauffman can be more prepared. All right, here we go. So I got awesome. So one of our stories that was selected, one of the ones that it looks like was selected, I'm pulling it up on my screen right now. Here we go. Awesome. There we go. With all three of us. I was trying to figure out which version looks the coolest. All right. Okay. Well, I think we'll do this one. Maybe. Okay. So I wanted to give you guys a little brief excerpt of the magazine itself. And I think I have this on a scroll. Let me make sure. I'm getting used to the formatting itself, by the way. Okay. So, there we go. I can move it. So much easier. So this was one of the stories that I know was selected. It was called Ink Link by Jim Landwehr. I was like, I hope I pronounced that right. I've realized I need to double check names so I don't mispronounce names. Okay. So I just wanted to give you a brief excerpt of the story because it's actually a really cool story from a real life experience. All right. Inklink by Jim Lanware. I come from a big Catholic family of 7 kids born in the Midwest in the late 50s and early 60s. My family went through a lot of hardships. My sister Linda died at the age of 5 from a Wilms tumor, and our father was murdered 5 years later in a racially charged bar fight in 1967. At the time Dad was killed, we were living in the housing projects of St. Paul in what looked like a desperate situation because my mother was left to raise my 5 siblings and me. Fortunately, we had a strong, fiercely independent mother who managed to work us out of the housing projects into our home that she purchased in 1969. We lived in that house for 15 years, providing a foundation for establishing the core of our sibling relationship. We ate dinner around the table several nights a week and celebrated holidays and birthdays together. We somehow managed to do it all while sharing bedrooms and miraculously a single bathroom. The shared grief over the loss of our father and sister brought us together in ways that might not occur in other families. Despite constant bickering and infighting between us at any given moment, Mom constantly drilled home the fact that we were a family. She always said forgiveness, respect, and grace were our holy trinity. Like any family, we had our share of trials, breakdowns, and rebelliousness. We dealt with spilled milk, household chore disputes, and let's see if I can get that. And even a few run-ins with the law. I imagine that that comes with putting 7 humans under a roof, no matter where you go. But at the end of the day, we had each other's back. Now, I'm going to end the reading there. I wanted to give you guys a brief excerpt, and like you have to see this picture. This is like the coolest picture ever. Oh my God, I like absolutely love that picture. But definitely, so if you want to check out the magazine, this is one of the featured stories in it. And to learn more and read the rest of the story, it's part of the magazine's subscription of the new issue that just launched today. Oof, that was exciting. All right, I hope I was able to do the reading a little bit of justice as I figure out the formatting. I was like, as you guys,
yeah, we're
sure
getting
you guys
there with
know.
the formatting.
What was that?
I said, no, we're still figuring out the formatting ourselves. So it's awesome.
Oh no, that's super cool. I think it was more the formatting on my part. I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, how do I enlarge this the right way so I can actually like see what I want to see?
Yeah.
But that was awesome. So after giving them a little just like sneak peek into the magazine itself, what for our audience and for writers who are here and want to like improve their storytelling, do you guys have any advice or any tips for writers who are like working on telling short stories to make them more engaging, to make them more like compelling, or to really make them more inspirational? Because I'm sure you guys probably have criteria for which stories get selected and put in the magazine and understand like, okay, this is the type of story that somebody wants to read.
Yeah. Well, I know that it is hard for a lot of people, especially when they've got a lot to say, to write a short story. But we do have guidelines around the stories, especially when it comes to the word count. So I think the maximum is 1,500 words for a normal short story, and I think it's 500 for the flash fiction. Yeah, we do have a lot of guidelines regarding the word count, the theme, the type of stories that go in there, and just for like legal type of reasons as well. Like we have, and like age as well. So it has to be age appropriate so anybody can sort of read it.
Of course, because it's more geared towards like a general, or more like a general audience. So that way somebody who's younger can probably read it.
Yeah, that's right. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, we try to have things like no cursing and things like no abuse and things like that. So we don't want any violence in the stories or anything like that. But in relation to, I guess, the structure, that's probably Ian's section.
Yeah. So you want to discuss like how to enrich the story, or maybe the starting is, or is how to write the story. Where to begin.
Yeah, and I guess I look at it like this, right? So for somebody who's here, like watching the stream, like if they could like have a takeaway, like what would be like the advice or any advice you would recommend towards like working on short stories?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you are someone who tends to have to plot your story out, write all the details down if you need a good outline. Now, you either get, so there's two kinds of writers, right? Either you're a pantser and you just write it, or you're a plotter. And then there's one of the terminologies which is in between, where you can
we were actually just talking about plotters and pantsers on yesterday's stream.
And then you're a planter if you're in the middle, which well, I'm a planter, but I'm a pantser. I prefer to do the pantser.
Wait, is that actually a middle category? Is planter a middle category?
It's called planter.
Wait, so like plotter and pantser. I'm gonna be honest. Like one of the things that I missed before these last 6 months was like some like common terms. When I came on and I looked, I'm like, all right, plotters and pantsers. Those are like those words are kind of stupid. So, like I was just like.
So let's go into, I guess, character development, because I think that. I mean, I know that I have a really vivid mind, so I'm really strong at, creating my inner world, but that has to be in a relationship with your character. So you're not going to put, every story has a conflict. So if there's kind of like a doom and gloom kind of personality in the beginning of the story, like there's some kind of struggle, right? This character struggling, they're wounded or whatever. They're not going to be walking in the sunshine. It's going to be a dark and dreary evening, maybe, and maybe they're talking with a best friend, which is that are they good influence, are they bad influence? So it's like, if they're good influence, that could be a sign of hope in the story, a kind of a foreshadow. If they're a negative influence, it shows some kind of stronghold, that they may go through the story together, and maybe that best friend is like their worst enemy, or what would become their worst enemy. So it's those kinds of dynamics, and so you need to know your character. I'm very good at like just being kind of mechanical with my characters when I write. So again,
would you say that your strength? Would you say your strength is world building in general when you think about like the different elements? Mine is probably like character development. Melissa, I'm just curious, Rent, and sorry to cut you off. Melissa, what's your strength with your writing style?
Oh, I don't know if I have a strength. I just write.
Melissa's just like I'm just good at all of it. I'm a well-rounded writer, as we should be.
No, I actually don't have the vivid imagination like Ian does. I just have I just write what I think.
It's still two different forms of creativity. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether or not it's fiction or nonfiction, that's just two completely different art forms of creativity. I don't think one is lesser or more. I think you're just as creative. It's just it's a different type of creativity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I can't talk about character building or plot development or anything like that, because I'm not really an expert in that sense. I just write what I think, sort of thing.
So. Well, excellent. So like, first off, both of you guys, thank you for sharing that. I was like, I could talk about writing and creative writing literally all day, every day. By the way, like I wanted to just throw up here one of the comments Atomic threw up. He was saying, if you're struggled getting started with crafting compelling narratives, you can receive a complimentary PDF from KaleidoScript, Unleash Your Creativity, 25 Writing Prompts to get your story started. And I'm like, I think that's like the perfect segue. What does KaleidoScript have to offer? beyond like the magazine, as I've looked through your website and I've looked through some of the services you offer, there's a lot of things that you guys have. Can you guys talk about that a little bit for our writing community?
Well, we do have free subscriptions that you can actually join. So you can actually join for free, and you'll get a quarterly issue of the magazine, community, and things like that. With the other two, there's more opportunities to write. So I think it's $60 per year. That's Australian dollars. So I think it works out to be about $40 US a year. You get like a couple of opportunities to write during the year, and just some like feedback on the on your story. And I can't even remember exactly like everything that's in there, but if you pull up,
I think this is a perfect time.
If you pull up maybe if you pull it up, it's probably easier. But we do offer a lot, especially for the writers that want to go a little bit further, writing their stories, and we give opportunities as we grow, because obviously this is only the second issue, so we want to get more stories in the magazines as we go along, and just try to grow it as much as we can, and give writers and authors the more opportunities, as we grow. So
and I as you were talking, Melissa, I pulled this up on the stream right now so our audience can see, right? So just by subscribing, they can get the free issue, right? The free issue of the KaleidoScript, which is awesome. And then I know you were speaking a little bit to the writing community. And then what else? Let's see, let me go with this one, will be a little better. So, and then we got, so that way you can take the writing career to the next level, right? And it kind of speaks to all of these things that you guys offer. And I know it's one of those things when like I'm asked on the spot about like my business, and especially if I wasn't prepared for it, I'll be like, what do I offer? I write good. But I was like super excited because I'm like, it sounds like you guys have so much to offer just by being a subscriber, right? So do you guys have some subscriber only, you have some events, it looks like engagement, and I know you spoke to feedback on the story process, along with the promotion of your published work. And I mean, even as I looked through the new issue, like there's a lot of promotion for writers in there, which is incredible, because as writers, we want to tell our stories and get it out there.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have a blog as well. And when you're featured in the magazine, or if you win the contest, then we actually send emails and we put it on our blog. And we just try to send it out to our network as much as possible, so they get recognition as well. So they're kind of the benefits of being part of the magazine. And like when you're part of the magazine, you want to share it yourself, right? So it's a flow-on effect. So that's what we hope to get and to grow as we go along. So the more shares, better it is for everyone. So
it kind of sounds like it's like a community where there's a lot of people who are coming with real stories, who want to like share their stories, maybe in like a little bit more of a, is it more of a just a short form format, or is it just, are you guys seeing like a mix of short stories and some longer? What are you guys seeing so far?
Yeah, mostly just short stories.
Mostly short. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're still really focused on trying to build the flash fiction, and there's not as many. I think we can do a little better at building that up, but yeah, mostly the short stories.
Okay, awesome. All right, let me pull this back up.
Yeah, and I would
Awesome.
also say for myself,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm always willing to, people reach out, because I know I love to network with people. I'm willing to try and find them, that person that they need, whether it's an illustrator or editor or whatever. And we have some of those people that we're promoting or were available in the magazine, but um, you know, I want to try and help people through that process. So like, there's something that's not listed there, I want to be as helpful as possible to be able to, um, provide those resources to the people.
Mhm. And it kind of sounds like part of your guys' mission is to really help writers improve their storytelling. And that's like
Mm.
that at heart. And it looks like I even have a couple of our audience in the chat who are saying that they want to check out the submission process. Can anybody submit
Yeah,
to the magazine, or do they need to be a subscriber?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a,
Anybody can submit. It's probably
Okay.
better if it's probably better if they are subscriber, because they actually get the emails sent to them as well.
Okay.
So when we send out emails all the time, so
Mhm.
they have the opportunity to submit a story whenever they like.
Mhm.
There's no cap on when you can do it. There's just
You're like, all right, and
yeah,
it's midnight. You can't
yeah.
submit anymore.
No.
yeah,
The only time when I suppose, like, we have deadlines when the magazine is going to be released. So I think it's like a month before we
Mhm.
stop the submission
Mhm.
for the actual magazine. But
Mhm.
even if it's after that, they can still submit for the next one, basically. So we're
Awesome.
always,
And then
yeah,
it sounds like there's an opportunity for writers to submit for both like the short story to be in the magazine itself, and then there's also flash fiction opportunities. Are those two separate
yeah.
opportunities?
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I wanted to clarify, make
yeah,
sure I understood.
we have a short story contest, and followed
Mhm.
after that, well, like like maybe like the next month, late or
Mhm.
after the flash fic, or after the, so 1 month we'll have a short story contest. After that
Okay.
month, the following month we'll do like a flash fiction, and we
That's
post.
really cool. So it kind of gives like two different formats for writers who are like, okay, I want to tell a story. It's a full story. As compared to, all right, I'm just going to write something on the spot. It's going to be short. It's going to be sweet, and hopefully it's good.
yeah.
All right. Beautiful. So I wanted to uh, thank you so much, both of you. I want to make sure that we shared the specific value that writers can get by subscribing to the magazine, which is incredible. It sounds like you guys have a growing online community. And especially if you're the type of writer out there who's really trying to work on improving your writing capability as a short form storyteller, this is the perfect community for you. So, as we're approaching this part of the podcast, I want to open it up to you, the audience, for questions. And I was like, let me throw up this banner. So Q&A. So, what questions do you have for either Ian, Melissa, or myself about either the magazine or the writing process? We would love to hear from you. So I'm going to drop it in the comments below, and let me throw up. I know I had a good one from Atomic. Let's see. Atomic said, question. I noticed you have a limited number of categories listed on the KaleidoScript submissions page. Is science fiction excluded, or do you consider that a part of fantasy?
Oh no, I would say that that's still part of fantasy.
Okay.
I
So do
mean,
you consider it like fantasy slash sci-fi?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, I
The
mean, it's always, huh?
No,
Well, I
I
mean,
was just going to say that the whole point of the magazine is to bridge fiction with reality. So if there's
Mhm.
a science fiction aspect to make it real, then we
Mhm.
would include it. So we do read all the stories
Mhm.
and make sure that they do fit like the type of magazine, that they do fit the magazine overall theme. So we still, even if they want to write the short story, then we are still going to consider it, but we would let them know that it's either not it's for the magazine or it's not, and we would give feedback regardless. So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
So the writers who submit, they're going to get feedback, which is great.
yeah,
And then the types of storytelling that you look for is going to be not, you wouldn't say like extreme science fantasy or science fantasy, extreme science fiction, but more it's going to be kind of like the cross where it's like nonfiction / sci-fi. More so.
yeah. I guess so. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. I wanted to clarify. That is awesome. Okay, let's see. Well, it looks like we have another question. John, does it cost to submit? And I think we actually touched upon this a little earlier. I believe what you were sharing was it's free to submit a story when you guys do the quarterly submissions. So that's absolutely free, $0. But if you are a subscriber, you're getting additional benefits out of the process, right? So you're getting more feedback, you're getting community engagement, and you're getting some of the other things that we touched upon.
So if you're going to sign up for free, we have made it so there's one submission per year if you're in the free subscription. But if you're going into the higher subscriptions, the $60 or the $300 quarterly, then you'd be getting more opportunities to write. So you could write, I think, up to 8 per year if you're in the quarterly subscription, or if you're in the yearly subscription, then I think you get 4 stories you can write. So you're just getting more opportunities when you're paying for it. But yeah, if you want to just write one story, then it's free, no charge.
Yeah. So John, it sounds like it's definitely worth like checking it out so you can like submit your first story, and then if you like that experience, right? Because that's free exposure essentially. And then if you like that and you get value out of it, then submitting it for future issues and then becoming a subscriber, it sounds like is awesome. Awesome. And then let me see. So let me drop that. Another question from John. Do you publish self-published works? This is actually a great question. So if something's already been published, can they submit it as a story? Or maybe if they've also, let's say maybe they posted it on like another social media platform, like maybe they posted it on Medium or on a blog. What's that look like?
Yeah, that is actually part of our subscription guidelines, as we prefer original work. So yeah, if you've got original work, it's preferred.
Okay. So by original work, you mean it hasn't been
not published. Yeah,
not published
not
at all.
Published. Yeah.
Does it count as being published to like a personal blog? Does that count as being published?
Yeah, that's published. Okay. So if we want the story to be just exclusive.
To be exclusively for the magazine. Or gotcha, that totally makes sense. I think that it's a great opportunity. And I was like, this is something I think for myself, right? So if I've written a story and I haven't published it yet, right? It's a brand new like short story. And I'm like, wow, this story is fire. And I want somewhere to put it out. I would want to put it on the magazine first and have it get exposure through the magazine. And then let's say that I got good feedback or people enjoyed it, then there would probably be a publishing option for it after the fact, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's their story; they can do what they want with it. But you know, like
so it's just a submission guidelines, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's the way that I generally recommend for newer writers. For when you're putting your stories out, submit it to different magazines like this one, and then once it's out there, then you can continue on the publishing process after, because then you're also getting feedback. And then if you're going traditional publishing, now you have something on that story's resume of being like featured in a magazine, featured in KaleidoScript Magazine, which is so cool. It's like one of the coolest things.
Yeah, and that's a good way to build your credit too. Like you're trying to build a resume and show your credibility somewhere.
Awesome. And then I know even John touched on, he's like, that is why I'm going to hold back all of my new short stories from here on for magazines. And that's awesome. It's really cool.
That's good, yeah.
It sounds like this might be a cool opportunity for you, my man. And then I know Tomic touched on, the submission page states explicitly previously published work, including on blogs or social media, is generally not accepted. So literally word for word. Awesome. So let me think. As we're wrapping this up and we're kind of hopping into like the next portion of this podcast, what do either of you have any like advice or any recommendations for somebody to get their story published into the next issue? What's the process that they need to take? Because I know today's issue is just launching. What can they do right now if they're like, I want to get my story read? Is there anything they can do today?
Submit it. Just submit your story.
So they can submit the story now for the next issue.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I think something they could do
definitely.
if they are struggling to write, or they they would need some ideas, is they could subscribe to the writing prompts. We're kind of notorious to try and get those out to help people, because I feel like so many people, they don't know where to start, or some people are somewhere in the middle, with that. And so to help, I would say just reach out, for support, if you need ideas or where to start, because you got to have a good idea, right? You got to have something and know how to put it together. And so
I mean, we've got support, like if you need support, there's I think it's stories at kscriptmag.com, so they can email us. There is support on the website as well, so you can just reach out. There's the 25 prompts that you can download that will help. But Ian's really good at giving feedback, so
okay, awesome.
So he's the expert there.
And then I know you guys have the online community as well.
That's right,
for you who are here in the live stream right now, or if you're watching this on the replay, definitely go check out the socials, go hop onto Facebook. I've actually linked all the information below. I'm going to add some additional links at the end of the stream, but we'll be linking the website. We'll be linking how you can subscribe, the details for both Melissa and Ian, and the website itself. So if you want to know more, definitely check out the links below. It sounds like this is the perfect opportunity if you want to get your short story out there. Excellent. And then let's see. Thomas says is the once per year. And so I want to make sure that I understood this. Does the once per year for free limitation apply to submissions? Or, that makes sense. So let's say a writer submits their story and it's not selected. Can they submit an unlimited number of times with the free option? Or can they only submit once? What's your guys' process
so you can submit as many times as you like, but we're only going to choose one of your stories if you're in the free per year. So if you are in any of the other subscriptions, we can choose 4 or 8 of them for each of the magazines, each of the issues. So
awesome. So unlimited unlimited submissions, but only one will be published until you become until you subscribe. Okay, awesome. Great question, Atomic. All right, excellent. Well, those were some really good questions, and I'm glad that we were able to talk through some of the logistics with the magazine, because I think this is an absolutely great way for writers to be able to share their work. I know I get a lot of beginner and intermediate writers through my own stream all the time. And I have writers who are working on stories, and then maybe they get discouraged, or maybe they get busy with life, and then their stories just never get put out there, when all it takes is just looking it over a couple times, getting it edited, and then putting it out into a magazine, so that way they can share it with the world. And then if they need help, they can also join your community, which is awesome. Let's see. And then, so I have one really good question for you guys. As I'm tying off our podcast, I have a really great question. And by the way, if you're here in the stream, we're going to be doing our daily writing exercise. I'm going to be doing our AI GBT prompt exercise shortly after this. So stick around and, we'll get to write something fun. Let's see. Actually, before I get to the question, I had another good one. Let's see. Gela Sebastian was asking, if I submit my story, does this mean that I am not allowed to share it with other platforms, or is it still under my own rights? So let's say it's been submitted, right? And then it's been chosen to be in the magazine. Then they can also, after the fact, share it on their other social medias. Is there like a time limit? How does that work out?
So once the story is published, so we'll choose the story and we will let the author know that their story is going to be published in the next issue. Once the story is published, then they can share the magazine on their own socials. But we just ask that, like they don't post their actual story on another magazine or in another magazine or on their own blog or anything like that. We would like them to share the magazine that their story is in. So definitely share the magazine.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense.
Because their story,
I don't think there's any reason not to share the magazine. If my story was in a magazine, I'd be like, dang, the entire world's gonna have the magazine. I want them to see the magazine.
That's the whole point, right? To get exposed.
Yeah. So Gela, I think. So I think absolutely. So once you have submitted, assuming that it gets accepted, you can share it to other platforms. But the ask is that you're sharing it as the magazine itself. Absolutely. And then that you're also not publishing it.
Yeah. I mean, the story is still under your own rights. Like, we can't take that away from you. But it's just, I mean, if you want to publish it afterwards, that's, totally up to you. But yeah, we just ask that before you do that to just give us a heads up that it's not published anywhere else.
So basically, don't publish my story in your magazine and then go to your competing magazine and publish in them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So perfect question. Okay, it's like I have to ask this. I have to have the fun, creative question for all my guests. So, and I know I haven't shared this question with you previously. If tomorrow were your last day on Earth and you could leave behind a quote for all the writers in the world, what would the quote be?
For all the writers in the world.
For all of the writers out there, for the aspiring, the unpublished writers, the published writers. What quote would you leave them?
Just write.
I have to go to my Instagram to.
But Melissa, did you say yours was quote just right?
Yeah. Well, why? Because a lot of, like, I have come across so many people that say that they're not authors, they're not writers. When you publish a book, that's when you become an author. I'm like, when you write, you're still an author because you're writing your own thing. So, I just say, if you've got something to share and you've got, you want to put a message out into the world, then just write it and share it with the world.
Like, just do it. Put your story out there. I love that. It's very straight and to the point. I absolutely love that. Sometimes we get so lost in, trying to be creative in the words, when really, like, the goal is just write and just sit down and write already. Awesome. And then Ian, what about you?
Yeah, so I wrote these words the other year, and I put it on my Instagram. And this kind of echoes some of what we were saying earlier, but it says, the words you write today will be the message you leave behind for future generations. And so that I really resonate with that, because like I was talking about, what you write, and then, you're leaving that behind, you're capturing history for someone else to look at, and you know, come after me, right? They're going to the stories, what the works that I've done.
And are you still there
Not just
where
my
you're
story, but
cutting out a little
being able
bit?
to, you see, oh, you all right?
It,
You're able to spin
Yeah,
it.
and can you repeat that last part? You were cutting out a little bit, so we missed what you were saying.
Oh yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, a
so
little better. It looks like
um
the reception. Yep.
yeah, okay, so that quote, goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, um, about writing your book, and also, being a part of your generation, your time, of where with the rest of all the other writers who, like, the thing about writing is it isn't just my work, it's the work of other people. And so, like, when you have thousands of writers, well, the generation, right? The generation, um, ever, so it's important for me to release my own work, but also to remember the works of other people, as a whole, because we're all telling a message together, not just.
Oh, oh no, we
Oh, we've
lost
lost
him.
him.
Oh no.
No.
Right at the end there too. Well, I was absolutely loving both Ian's quote and yourself, Melissa. And it looks like we got Ian, we lost you there for a second.
Oh man.
That's like the moment you're about to say something really inspiring, and you're like, and that is the way that the world should.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Just that. Okay, so it's not just about my work being published, but um, the the published work of my generation, and that
Mhm,
we tell a message together. It's not just my message, but what we're saying together as a people, as during this time frame. And so, like,
mhm,
when people look back, they don't just say, "Oh, look, Ian wrote this book, and Kauffman wrote this book, and Melissa." No, it's like, you know, there's a whole world of literature to be read, right? And we
mhm.
can help you know, we capture that world through reading all these different stories, and not just, my work. So I know my quote is, you know I'm a very expansive thinker, so it's not just, a personal thing about myself,
Mhm.
towards writing, but, I guess the inspiration for others to take their writing serious, and to, um, to go after it with all their heart, because what you write, like, that's, once you're dead, once you're gone, you're gone. But what
Mhm.
like, you have those words of wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and like what you had to give to the world, like it's there for the taking, and
Mm.
people can
And
really
you
benefit
don't
that.
want
You
to.
don't, that's the seed of eternity, kind of like throughout generations, that people can
The
refer to
seed
you.
of eternity.
Uh,
I love that.
I guess you
well,
don't
the
want to
seed.
regret your life either. Like
Mhm,
you write something that you're not going to regret it
Yeah,
like after you die.
mhm.
Like you've said something before you before you leave the world. So
yeah. Any last
Aw.
words, right?
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I have to say, I absolutely 100% love that. I wanna take this moment and genuinely thank both of you for joining me today. I feel like we were
Thank
able
you,
to
Hope.
have a lot of great conversations and some great discussions about your experience and the magazine itself. I'm excited now. I wanna submit a story.
Yeah, go for
I,
it.
So if you want to learn more about the magazine itself, or you want to go check it out, the description and the details are down in the the details of the video. So click on the link. And by the way, I've like where I'm helping them out and we're working together a little bit. So click on the affiliate link. You should definitely do the affiliate link. Um, but yeah, definitely learn more about the magazine, submit your story, and go on the journey for bridging your short story with fiction and reality. Thank you both so much for joining me. And if you found any value from the stream at all, don't forget to tap that follow and subscribe button. If you want to learn more about like the magazine, you want to learn more about KaleidoScript Magazine, you want to learn like, okay, how do I like submit a story? How do I go through that process? You can start submitting a story today. Maybe you wrote a really cool free write today where you're like, you know what, this could be a cool short story to submit. So if you want to learn more, details are going to be down in the video description. Don't forget, writers, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and this is Ian, and I'll catch you on the morrow.